Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Russell, Vice President, Community Engagement and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for WTTW and WFMT, and welcome to Firsthand Living in Poverty, Paths to Ending Childhood Poverty in America. In Firsthand Living in Poverty, WTTW presents a documentary series, reported text stories, expert talks, and community discussions with a supporting discussion guide, all of which can be found on WTTW.com/firsthand. Today's conversation will be moderated by Lyft Chicago Executive Director, Sarah Spunt. Sarah will moderate a panel who will discuss creative and important new projects aiming to support families as they transition out of this pandemic. Community engagement for Firsthand Living in Poverty is made possible with leadership support from the CARES Foundation, Inc. Additional support for Firsthand Living in Poverty community engagement is provided by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Illinois. A special thank you to our supporters. Lead support for Firsthand Living in Poverty is provided by the Granger Foundation and Becky and Lester Knight, the Knight Family Foundation. Major support is also provided by Jim and Kay Mabey, Randy and Carrie McMillan, Butler Family Foundation, Denny and Sandy Cummings, the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation, Lou Collins, Edwardson Family Foundation, Mark and Jean Malnati Family Foundation, Kristen Carlson Vogan and Sean Vogan, and the Duncan family. Members and viewers like you make it possible for WTTW to bring provocative ideas to life, to tackle the issues that matter, and to expand our perspectives on the world in which we live. There is only one reason why this is possible, and that reason is you. Thank you for your support. Finally, I would like to share with you a special introduction from U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. Senator Duckworth believes in investing in communities that have been ignored for too long and making college more affordable for all Americans. After the video, please welcome Lyft Chicago Executive Director, Sarah Spunt. Please roll the video.
Good evening. I'm Senator Tammy Duckworth, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this important discussion. I also want to thank the hosts and participants of the upcoming panel, as well as Lyft Chicago, for putting this event together. The last 2 years of this pandemic have exacerbated and illuminated the many, many challenges that working families in America face. The work organizations like Lyft Chicago do to help some of the most vulnerable Illinoisans access critical support resources is impressive, and it inspires so many of us every day. While the day-to-day work that Lyft is doing on the ground doesn't always look the same as what I'm doing in DC, we share so many of the same goals. What we're working toward isn't complicated. In the wealthiest nation in the world, no one should go hungry. In the wealthiest nation in the world, no one should be forced to choose between paying rent and paying for their groceries. In the wealthiest nation in the world, access to basic necessities like food and health care should be a right, not a luxury. I believe in all that because I know that it's what it's like to be unsure where your next meal is coming from. My dad was a veteran who put himself through college thanks to the GI Bill, then went on to find a good career that helped support our family of 4. But at age 55, he all of a sudden lost his job. Soon after, we were forced onto food stamps, teetering on the brink of homelessness. I was just a teenager at the time, but I still remember going to the grocery store with my parents and counting our last 5 $1 food stamps to buy as much bread and bologna as possible, then praying that we'd have enough to last the week. I still remember saving my apple for my school lunch and bringing it home, lying to my dad and telling him that I wasn't hungry, just to make sure he ate at least one thing that day. There's a level of desperation you don't understand until you see a proud man who served his country for as long as my dad did, accept a lie from his daughter, from me, knowing that what we both knew, that it was a lie. But he was hungry and he ate the apple. Sadly, my story is not unique. Every year, millions of Americans struggle with food insecurity. For those families' sake, we must keep defending critical safety net programs such as SNAP, the Child Care Tax Credit, and the Earned Income Tax Credit. The Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit CTC are 2 of the most effective tools we have to put money in the pockets of working people and pull children out of poverty. Thanks to the American Rescue Plan's expanded Child Tax Credit, families all across Illinois are now receiving an additional $250 to $300 per month per child to help them make ends meet. This credit is a critical lifeline for working families. This legislation was a lifeline for working families throughout our state, and I'm so proud to have helped bring this funding to those who need it most, and I'm proud that Democrats are on the brink of extending this expanded tax credit for another year with a Building Back Better budget. But our work isn't done, and that's why I'm so grateful to have partners like LIFT Chicago and everyone here today as partners in this fight. Fighting the vicious cycle of poverty takes more than just one bill. It takes more than just one organization. It takes a collective effort from our society and a pledge for all of us to do more. It means ensuring that those who are homeless have a roof over their heads at night. It means guaranteeing that those who are struggling to find work don't also have to struggle to feed their kids. And it means making sure that those who are sick have a community around them to help them through these worst-case scenario moments. With that, I'll leave it to our parents and experts to discuss more. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth, for those powerful words and that wonderful introduction and all the work that you do to protect our families. I want to thank everyone for turning in and joining us today. My name is Sarah Spunt, and I'm the Executive Director of LIFT Chicago. We are excited to have this conversation about the important work taking place in Chicago and across Illinois to break the cycle of poverty. We are so thankful to WTTW and the Firsthand Poverty series for hosting this important conversation. At LIFT, we believe all families deserve a better future, no matter their race, ethnicity, or zip code. Poverty, like wealth, is passed down from generation to generation, and decades of racial inequity and underinvestment in our communities have kept families trapped in this cycle. LIFT's mission is to break the cycle of poverty by investing in families. We build families' well-being, financial strength, and social connections through one-on-one coaching and direct cash support to lift 2 generations at once. I'd like to introduce you to our guest panelists today. Can you all please join me in turning in your videos? In today's conversation, we're going to hear from Aisha, a LIFT Chicago parent, Melissa, one of the parents featured in the Firsthand documentary series, Jonathan Doster, Director of Illinois Legislation Affairs at Start Early, and Dom Tocci, Deputy Bureau Chief, Cook County Bureau of Economic Development. And additionally, Lucy Smart, our Program Manager of Family Economics Mobility at LIFT. We will also see a few clips from Melissa's episode of this series. If you have questions for the panelists throughout, please enter them in the Q&A box, and we will do our best to get them up by the end of this conversation. Before we jump into our discussion, I'd like to start off with a short clip from Melissa's story.
Every day is just about the same thing. Every day I get the same routine. You get up, you go to work, come home, you cook dinner, and go to bed and do the same thing. I'm working at Walgreens. I've been working at Walgreens for about 17 years now. I started off as a cashier, and now I'm a photo specialist there. When I first started at Walgreens, I was making $7.20 an hour. We got a raise like once a year. It could have been somewhere around a quarter to maybe 50 cents was the most.
How you doing today?
I am good. How you doing today?
Trying to say cool. It's so hot outside.
It is. It's very hot out there. I am waiting. Then after that, they raised the minimum wage up. It went up to like $13. After being there for over 10 years, I wasn't even at $13, so it was like a slap in all our face to know that like you've been there all these years and you're still making the same thing as people who's just getting hired. It was tough. I'm not able to live off of minimum wage. I had times where I can literally get paid that morning, and by the afternoon, my whole check was gone. I would never want my kids to see the worries that I have. I'm not gonna have gas for the next couple days. I'm gonna have to make this gas that I do have there and stretch. I couldn't take my kids to McDonald's if they asked for it. I couldn't give them money to go to the book fair at school because I didn't have it. Because it was either going towards rent or a certain bill. I barely get by.
Oh, you want some of what? Oh, we don't need a shopping cart. Mommy's just gonna get a few things. Ooh, grab that one.
I would like to see a change of employment.
I got it.
But what else could I be doing with the education I have?
I need 2 more. There we go.
You can't get hired with just a high school diploma. I don't feel like I'm smart enough to go to school, but I feel like if I wanted something better than a minimum wage job, I have to get a higher education.
Oh, okay. What you gonna get? You gonna get candy or you want chips?
And it's like, how can you get it?
You gonna get one, man?
I get 2.
You can't try to work on yourself and also have a job and be a parent too. So it's like something's gonna have to be pushed to the side.
Thank you. Who's gonna help with the bag? Come on, let's go.
What a powerful clip. My first question is for you, Melissa, and thank you for joining us today and sharing your story with us today and through the documentary. The commitment you have to your children is admirable, and I'm curious of learning a little bit more about what it was like to have this opportunity to share your story and see yourself on screen.
Oh, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. And it was a little tough at first. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to let people in on what is it like in my life or my shoes. I didn't want to be judged, but I felt like it was presented to me for a reason. And me telling my stories is a story for just about everybody. You know, there's a lot of people who have been reaching out to me and say that they walked in my shoes. They had the same struggles. And when I hear that, I feel like maybe me coming with my story can help others. And this right here has absolutely been so helpful to me and my family. I have been getting so many resources or people trying to help me with things I didn't know before. And I had gotten so many people who had asked about trying to help me, you know, do better in school, do better with a career, do better with just about any and everything right about now. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
Well, I'm glad your story is having an impact on the viewers, and viewers are using their connections and resources to help you and your family too. That's really moving to hear. Dom, I'd like to ask you a quick question. When you hear in the video clip about Melissa's story and her desire to go back to school in order to find a higher paying job and all the complexities she's facing as a working parent, and putting her goals aside of going back to school to get that higher paying job, is there anything from the county perspective or a local government perspective that you can share about how you all are working to help families like Melissa in achieving their career and educational goals?
Thank you, Sarah. And first, I want to say it's a pleasure to be on the panel with Melissa and all the other panelists. You know, the systems that I think we need to have in place are ones that can provide assistance to individuals like Melissa at similar points in their lives, so that there aren't as many barriers to doing so and that it makes it a little more manageable. As a parent of 3, I know that's a full-time job in itself. And I can see, you know, a really important government role in helping at this time. You know, historically, the way we've dealt with poverty is to provide programs for those in need, but we haven't done the obvious, or at least much of the obvious, which is just provide money, cash. At the county, we believe we need to trust and invest in our residents. You know, the evidence is already there that direct cash works, and there's been a lot of research showing the great impacts it has on employment, the ability to handle an emergency, on mental health. This evidence is why we launched our direct cash assistance program last year, which allowed us to give almost 14,000 households in suburban Cook County one-time cash assistance of $600. It was popular enough, particularly during COVID, that we had to increase our initial allocation to that program 4 times over. And it worked because it gave residents the flexibility that they needed to decide how to best meet their own needs. While we feel direct cash is important, programs do still matter. LIFT's model of pairing coaching with cash assistance, which I know we'll hear more about today, is one great example. The county supports a range of social safety net programs and works with partners like the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership and the state of Illinois to create and connect residents to career pathways and apprenticeships. There's so much that the government can do and needs to do. And I'm excited that the county is committed to using some of the federal resource infusion in response to COVID to invest in critical programs and in cash assistance. In addition to kind of one-time emergency assistance, which we're looking more at kind of building on our program last year, we are exploring guaranteed income pilots for targeted populations. So I'm excited to see what comes next there.
Great, thank you, Don. And then Aisha, I want to turn the conversation over to you a little bit. Don mentioned how LIFT's program, and in my introduction, I shared a little bit about how we partner directly with parents in a one-on-one coaching program, plus direct cash investments. And would love to hear a little bit more just about you, some of the challenges you face as a parent, and how you've worked with LIFT to achieve some of your career and financial goals.
Yes, thank you for having me. I have went through a lot being a single parent, and it's been a long journey. I don't even know where to start. I know I don't have all day, but during these past couple of years, during the pandemic specifically, it has been extremely hard because I lost a job that I depended on, of course, for paying bills, rent, putting food in the house, and I just got laid off. Then my daughter not being able to go to school anymore because of, COVID. So it was me being a mommy all day, plus trying to be productive as an adult, perhaps look for a job or just having the energy to look for a job, after you have a toddler in the house with you. So it was months that turns into like a couple years where we went without steady income. So it was a rocky road for me on how I was going to have the remainder of my rent, or if I should even pay the remainder of it and, put this on the light bill so the light bill won't go off. And since I have been partnering with, since I have been being serviced with LIFT Chicago, and their help and the coaches has just been a way to keep pushing me to not give up or to not procrastinate. Even though I was going through what I was going through, I still needed to, push forward so that we can have better days. And during those times, I would get coached with LIFT. They would send me payments that would come on time, where I was worried about if I should go grocery shopping or if I needed to pay all of my rent so I won't get another notice. It was just, it ended up being mentally draining, but LIFT Chicago was very, very supportive financially, mentally. It's the program is definitely a go-to for me.
And you, thank you for sharing your challenges over the past couple of years. And I think it's important to celebrate a new recent job for you and finding a new job. Do you want to talk about how that came about, and even just the shift in your like stress or like decreasing the stress, and how did that all come about too? Can you share a little bit more there?
Yes, absolutely. I started a new job September, and oh my God, I was so excited because what I was working with Lyft Chicago were like goals and what I wanted out of the next job that I got. And my coach will, guide me and talk to me through things so far as what I'm looking for. And I knew that by me being a single mom and my daughter was going to be going back to school eventually, I wanted to get like a 9 to 5, something where we can work around her school schedule because I live here alone. I don't have any family here. So it's my support system here is very limited. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get a job that I was going to end up failing at because of the schedule, the fact, so I was working with the coaches on what I wanted, what I was looking for, and not just applying for any job and only be there a couple of months. I was telling them like, I want something permanent. I want to get in somewhere and I want to be great, So they coached me to just different websites to go on, temporary services that will hire from temp to, permanent. And I finally got an interview with a great company, great staff. Like I feel like I waited or I went through this pandemic just to get, the job that I have today because so far so good. My daughter is happy that I have a job, She asks me every day, how's the job going? And, she's very excited. So yeah, thank you very, very much for that. I'm very excited about that.
Well, we're glad we could be a part of that journey. And I'd like to ask my colleague, Lucy Smart, to jump in. Lucy oversees a lot of our work around family economic mobility. And Lucy directs cash investments in families through our quarterly goal fund or through our emergency relief funds that we provided during COVID relief is a big part of our program. And what have we seen and like what impacts have we seen through these investments and the learnings that we have seen in helping families?
Yep, thanks, Sarah. I think just the best way to put it is that by making these direct cash investments in our families that list the families we work with, we've seen parents take those funds and use them to invest in themselves. So with our family goal fund, our parent members receive $150 unrestricted cash transfer every 3 months that they're participating in the program. And with those funds, we've seen parents use that income to spend directly on basic needs. So things like food and transportation to keep their family stable and keep them on track, keep them able to focus on their goals. And then we've also seen families invest directly in those goals that they are setting themselves and working with their coaches to build out plans for. So things like building savings for emergencies, for their kids' education, for themselves, register small businesses and work towards those career, educational, and financial goals that they have. And we hear from parents and from LIFT members all the time about how having those extra funds just helps them stay on track and really speed up that progress towards their goals, towards long-term stability and towards economic mobility, and kind of towards the future that they want for themselves and they want for their families. And then I think something else really exciting, in addition to just having that opportunity to make that investment in themselves, having the unrestricted cash transfers as a part of the coaching program has resulted in parents setting more goals and achieving more goals. So having that source of stability and something that helps them, open up some time and space to continue focusing on goals really pays off.
Thank you for elevating how the direct cash expedites people's ability to set and achieve their goals. And I'm curious of if you could share a little bit more about the work LIFT has been doing with our families and families across the country to access the expanded child care tax credit under the American Rescue Plan and the impact that we are seeing there. And then Aisha and Melissa, I would love, after Lucy shares a little bit, to hear a little bit about your experience accessing and receiving the child care tax credit and how that's impacted your families.
Sure. Yeah, so at Lyft, we're all very excited about the expanded child tax credit because it's really an opportunity to see what we've learned through our cash transfers come to life in such a huge and impactful way. So we've been very focused both at our national team and regionally within our offices that are actually running the coaching program to make sure that we're increasing both awareness and access to this expanded child tax credit and ensuring that families are able to get the child tax credit payments monthly and utilize them to support their month-to-month expenses and month-to-month budgets. So internally, our regions have been hosting information sessions for Lyft parents to keep them up to date on all these changes that are coming from the American Rescue Plan and help them sign up for the monthly child tax credit. And we've on the national team been doing our best to support them in ensuring that staff and coaches know how to support parents in those ways. And then nationwide, Lyft has been involved in several campaigns to really increase awareness about the child tax credit, awareness for families that can receive it, and families and government actors across the country to ensure that everyone is aware of the impact this is making on families. And then really exciting, we are involved with the Office of Head Start to help promote awareness and access to their families and their staff that's working with families directly as well. So being a part of a more national conversation to make sure that families around the country know how to access the credit, know that they are eligible for it and that it's their benefit that is available to them and can use it to support their families in getting the things they need and finding that stability during this time.
Great, thank you, Lucy. Melissa, would you like to share first about the process of you accessing the child care tax credit and what that has meant for your family?
Oh, sure. Yes, I feel like that has been very helpful since we have received them. I'm able to do more things like buy my kids more clothes, take them places, that I normally can't, like, something fun like Safari Land or Enchanted Castles or something they like to do. Able to keep up with my bills, able to, keep gas in my car. So I feel like these payments every month has been greatly appreciated. And I'm like so happy that they came up with this plan because it's able to keep us afloat right now.
Great, thank you. It sounds like the ability to create some time for you and your family to just connect and relax and be a family is so important, and being able to have those moments as a family, especially because I know you have some teenagers too, so your children are getting older, and so being able to cherish those moments together right now, that must be just a great experience as a parent.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Aisha, do you want to share a little bit more about the impact the child tax credit has had on you and your family?
Yes, it's been very helpful, like very, very helpful. It got my daughter started with her, book bag, her school supplies. She wears a uniform, so it helps me buy a uniform, shoes, things that she needs to go to school with. It also gives me extra money for transportation because we do transportation daily. So it's been very helpful and right on time as well, because it's right after you just paying rent, and that's the most hardest time is, paying rent, and then a week or two after that, it's kind of scarce, so it comes at a really good time for us.
That's a great recommendation for our policymakers. And I know Senator Duckworth talked about how expanding child care tax credit in EITC is in the Build Back Better budget, and looking at just even the timing of the distribution and how mid-month distribution is really helpful. So that insight is great. I'd like to turn our conversation to another important topic. Obviously, cash is key to success, right? But there's many other factors at play when we're thinking of breaking the cycle of poverty and family economic mobility. And want to talk about the importance of access to childcare and the roles of childcare providers with families. And so if we can show the next clip of Melissa's story, that would be great.
I have a daycare lady. Her name is Migdalia.
You're moving too slow, little feet.
She's been watching all 4 of my kids since my oldest was 2. He's 17 now.
Dahlia. Hi. I'm gonna sit here for like 20 minutes. Hi.
They call her my surrogate. I had the babies, but she takes care of them.
Jane, come here. Where does this go?
Hold it where it goes.
Okay, though. Where does this go?
I appreciate her so much, because without her, I don't think I could have kept my job.
I love you too.
It's a second mom.
There we go, right? Oh, my baby.
I applied for a program where the state would pay a portion of the babysitting, and the only job that she has as an income coming in is whatever she gets from the babysitting.
They want this kind.
The Nesquik.
Yeah. This one is the real one for milk, and it's a different taste, so that's why he likes this one. Come on. Out. Maya's over there. That's her favorite corner.
I wouldn't trade her for anything.
I gotta go back to work. My break is over. You wanna be a good boy?
Yep.
Okay, I'll see you later. Bye, Maya.
Maya, say bye to mommy.
Bye, Mommy.
Bye, baby.
I don't want what I have for myself for my kids. I remember my 7-year-old telling me when he gets bigger, he's gonna go work at my store. And that's not what I would want for him. And I don't even know if I can call my job a career. I feel like if I had the proper tools or if I had the proper guidance, would I be somewhere else right now? Probably.
Customer service needed in the baby department.
Thank you. We've talked a lot about investing in families, specifically through cash in their pockets. However, we know it takes a holistic approach, and access to childcare is a crucial component of family economic mobility. Jonathan, I'd like for you to start this conversation off of just looking at what are the benefits of early education programs and how does it affect long-term economic mobility?
Thanks, Sarah. And before I begin, I just wanted to thank Lyft and WTTW for having us. It's an honor to be here with my fellow panelists. I'm happy to go after all of them because they're much more impressive than I am. But we at Start Early would argue that poverty is one of, if not the greatest threat to a child's well-being. And poverty disproportionately impacts families with young kids. Children under 3 are more likely to experience poverty than any other age group. They're twice as likely to experience poverty than adults 65 and older. At the same time, parents and caregivers face barriers accessing income supports, job opportunities. We've heard today about some of these amazing direct cash programs. Another intervention proven to positively impact economic mobility is access to high quality childcare and early childhood education programs. I know I'm paid to say that, but it's the truth. Some of you may know the work of Nobel laureate James Heckman at the University of Chicago. We talk a lot about him and his research in our field. His work shows that children with access to high quality early childhood programs have significantly better life outcomes than those without it. But what's even more relevant, I think, for today's conversation is the multi-generational benefits of early childhood programming. Heckman and others have found substantial second generation effects on education, employment, health. Put another way, the children who have been fortunate enough to participate in high quality childcare or early childhood programs are more likely to be employed full time with some college experience than their peers who don't. And I think you hear some of that from what Melissa is talking about in the video. There's an enormous amount of research to which we can point, but the science is really clear. The interventions in early childhood work, especially when they're initiated prenatally or shortly after birth.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. And I'm curious from Start Early's perspective, and then I would love to get Melissa and Aisha's perspective of the role parents play in early education, whether it is a site-based program or a home-based program that Melissa has wonderful access to as well. How the role of parents in early education, and how do we maintain their voice in that space?
I will certainly answer your question, Sarah, on the role parents play in our work. Can I also I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, I spend all of my time trying to build and strengthen our state's early care and education system. And I think it proves very beneficial for kids and families across Illinois. We also know that the early child system and early child programming doesn't operate in a vacuum. It doesn't solve all of our problems. And there are many factors that impact the lives of young kids. It's why we spend a bunch of our time outside of just building early care and education programs that work, supporting families and their economic mobility. So things like paid family medical leave, things like children's savings accounts, things like the expansion of EITC. Those are all policies that Start Early cares deeply about and are working hard to move forward outside of just making sure that there's high quality childcare and early childhood programs around for kids birth to 5. On the parent side, we are an early Head Start provider and have been for a very long time. So parent engagement and family engagement is at the core of what we do. It's at the core of the early Head Start model. In addition to our direct programs, we run home visiting programs and oversee the state's professional development system for home visiting, and that's an evidence-based 2-generation intervention aimed at, in a lot of ways, of preparing parents to be their child's first teacher. We also work for the Office of Head Start and run the National Center for Parent, Family, and Community Engagement. We're trying to focus our work on creating responsive training and technical assistance for programs that's rooted in equity and cultural and linguistic responsiveness to support staff, families, communities across the country. So as a provider, hearing from parents about some of the challenges they're facing and engaging them in some of those solutions is really core. And we also try to do that in all of our policy work. Sometimes we do it better than others. And I would, we need to continue to challenge ourselves to make sure that parents and providers are a part of all of our policy solutions. But when we're thinking about how much money we need the state to invest in our system, or what kind of laws we need to pass, or what kind of rules we need to change, we really want that to be rooted in the experience of children and families. And we do that by talking to our own provider network, having tables at which parents participate in that discussion. We do lots of focus groups, surveying, trying to generate ideas that don't just come from us policy wonks, but come from the field. So there's lots of ways in which we are interacting with those consumers of our early care and education system programs, but we can always do better. And I know that LIFT and Kofi and all sorts of our other partners do it even better than we do. But I'd be curious to hear from Melissa and Aisha and others too about this question, because I think it's a really important one to ask.
Yeah, and I can reframe the question a little bit too, and maybe start with Melissa and Aisha about just general access to childcare, especially when your children were young, or Melissa, with your experience of, and Aisha, of working and being a parent, and if you did get any type of paid family leave or medical leave, if you did not, what was the just your experience and thoughts on that?
Well, I can say without the childcare right now, I don't even know if I would still have a job, because I wouldn't even know if that would be something I can pay out my pocket. So for the state to be able to help us out with that, I'm grateful for it. I do remember when I didn't have it, or when I didn't have a childcare in the beginning of me working, it was days that I probably could have lost my job because I didn't have a stable or a reliable sitter for my kids. Even though at the time it was probably just one child, it was times like, even if it was a family member who would tell me they can, watch the baby, and then they couldn't. But I know that Migdalia, she has always like made sure, like, it's times where I can't pick them up from school and she will pick them up. Like, I'll take them to school and she'll pick them up and she'll keep them until I get off of work. Or if they had a doctor appointment, she went with me to the doctor where she is on their forms where she can take them to the doctor, so that way I don't have to miss work. So that way the kids can go to their appointments, be seen, and I can still be able to, collect the paycheck. So I'm really grateful for the system being able to pay somebody. And they even offer for the childcare people to take like CPR classes and take parenting classes and stuff like that, so then that way they can be educated on things too for the kids. So it's a good thing that they have going on for them. I really appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for our viewers, you're talking about the child care allowance that allows you to pay a licensed home daycare provider, correct?
Yes.
And so it's this,
and they help them get licensed too.
So help with the licensing and then the other credentials to ensure that it's a safe, positive learning environment in the home. Yep. And I think what's also crucial is it's supporting someone's small home business too, right?
Yes.
And so while you're able to support your family, you're also able to provide income for another person in your community. That's a huge support system to the local economy too, and making sure that she can provide for her family as well.
Yeah, because I remember when the pandemic happened and the kids weren't at school and they were going to be home, she was worried, like, she's going to be out of job. Like, am I going to be out of job now? Because you're not, but good thing is that I still work at the Walgreens. I'm still here, but we never really closed for anything. So it kind of worked out for us where I was still able to come to work, and then she did the e-learning for my kids at her home. It was a little challenging for her because she's not good with computers, but she learned through it, and she was actually really, really helpful. So I'm really grateful for her. She has always been reliable. So I'm very grateful for her.
Yeah. And yeah, I know one of our Donna, one of our viewers, said it takes a village, and we know at LIFT and our other partners, the power of social connections and social capital, and just having strong relationships and people in your corner are so important
very
to
important.
Caring for your family. And so, Aisha, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your experience with early education and childcare and access to it while being a working parent, and you also shared while you were laid off too, and just the role of childcare.
First, I want to say to Melissa, I pray I get me a Natalia. She sounds like an angel, and I'm currently looking for someone like her for my household. But childcare is very important. When I first had my daughter, she was hospitalized for the first 8 months of her life. So I was going back and forth to the NICU every day, all day, as long as they would let me stay there. Sometimes they would kick me out. But however, eventually I had to start working. And in order for me to have gotten the same experience with the program that you guys are talking about, they told me that I currently had made too much. And they didn't consider the fact that I was a single mother and I still paid, rent and all of this other stuff. So it was like based on how much you made. So I had to come out of my pocket for about a year or so, like struggling to pay. So it was kind of hard because there would be sometimes I couldn't make those payments and I had to think of a plan B, or I had to call off work a couple of days, or she would go from house to house, to whoever can help me for that particular day. Sometimes, I've had a couple of times where they dropped her off at my job, and I tried to finish my shift, for the little while that I had left of my shift, with my daughter there. But it's very important because she was also able to learn more. She was also able to play with kids and, know how to be around kids instead of being around mommy all the time, so it was a good thing for her, but it was a struggle for me a little bit, keeping her in there. Plus I worked at a hotel, so my hours were very flexible. I would go from morning shift to mid shift. So it was a struggle for a little while. And when the pandemic came, it like was a breather for me, but it wasn't. I wasn't working anymore, but I didn't have to really worry about a babysitter anymore because that was a big headache for me. But it was very important that I kept her in daycare just for, her to learn and learn how to adapt in different environments, with her peers. So early childhood is very, very important.
Thank you for sharing that. And Aisha, you brought up a topic that was also came in through one of our panelists as well, or a question from the audience as well, and just on the balance of what is a livable wage in a city, in an urban environment that does have like increasing rent costs and childcare costs that are expensive, and for families that might be making a little bit higher of an income still struggle to provide basic needs for their families. And so curious of like what insights you would share with the policymakers and stakeholders about the increasing costs of basic needs in the city, along with a livable wage.
Well, I don't really, I guess a livable wage in Chicago is $17 because with me making $17, I was supposed to be able to pay my rent. I was supposed to have been able to pay for childcare. I'm supposed to be able to pay for transportation and put food on the table all by my lonesome, which I don't feel nobody is obligated, but however, that was my plate, by myself that I had to make sure I provided and I was able to pay for, by myself with that type of wage. I don't know if that answers the question that you were saying, but yeah.
It does. I think what I'm hearing from your answer is you were making $17 an hour, which is above minimum wage in the city and above the minimum wage that some places are talking about with like increasing it to $15 an hour. But $17 an hour was still not enough for you to make ends meet, where you were paying rent and childcare and struggling from there, but was not enough money to qualify for some of the public, or too much money to qualify for some of the public safety net programs as well.
I wasn't qualified for anything government-wise. They said I made too much, and then with the apartments that I live in, you have to make so much to have an apartment, so it was kind of like contradicting, but that's how it is living here in Chicago. Yeah.
And Melissa, in the first clip that we saw from you discussed the very minimal increases that you received while working at Walgreens over the course of 17 years. And then when minimum wage was increased, it felt like a slap in the face because you'd been there for 17 years. But it sounds like $14 an hour is still,
it's at 15 now.
Not enough.
We're at 15 now.
Yes.
I actually just I'm at work right now, but they let me take some time out to do this. I ran into my district manager who was here for a visit, and we just had a discussion about him giving me a raise. So hopefully after I'm done with this, I would talk it over with him. Hopefully I will be getting a raise.
Well, we can celebrate that right now. For
18
you.
years. Yep, 18 years.
Thank you. I want to go into a few more questions from the audience. One is, what can we as individuals do to help advocate for policies like early education, access to paid leave, and things like that? Jonathan, do you want to take that question in terms of what people can do on the individual level to advocate for policies?
Yeah, it's a great question. I dropped into some chat on the Zoom, I don't know where it went, a couple of links. You know, we've worked in partnership with lots of other early childhood organizations, providers, parent groups to create a campaign to better fund and structure our early childhood system in Illinois. And we would love to add anybody to that list, and write to careil.org or .com, one of the two. What that'll get you there is one quick way to try to participate in some advocacy, both on the funding side for childcare and early intervention and preschool, but also on connecting with other parents and providers to try to figure out how we can deliver services in a better way. I think generally speaking, it's, you know, talking to your neighbors, talking to your family about some of the challenges. It's very helpful to develop a relationship with your local elected officials. They love to hear from constituents, particularly those who have thought about early childhood as some of the problems facing our early childhood system, and maybe whether or not they need some solutions to come from their districts. That's always a great way. You can always sign up for Start Early's accounts, and we are not bashful in asking for help and trying to move our agendas forward. But I think educating yourselves, talking to your neighbors and your community about some of these challenges, and then coming together and really demanding from government funding for these types of interventions, as well as supports for the providers. It's been a really difficult 2 years to be an early childhood provider. And it wasn't easy before the pandemic. And so everything that we can do as a collective to support that workforce is going to be really, really good for kids and families.
Thanks, Jonathan. And then another question from our audience is for Dom in Cook County. And how does Cook County involve parents and service providers in designing the support programs that you mentioned that you are either currently doing or planning on launching? And how are their needs and voices integrated into that process?
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I think is a newer one for the county, or at least for my bureau, in that, you know, we are newer to kind of direct service programs. You know, a lot of our resources historically have gone to like a network of nonprofit agencies providing different types of services. It really was as part of a COVID response where we rolled out some direct assistance programs like the cash assistance I mentioned, also some rent and mortgage assistance. And so we have kind of increased our engagement and marketing efforts. I think the county at large has done the same, particularly in reference to the federal resource infusion that I mentioned earlier. The county just over the last few months has gone through a really extensive community engagement process. Hopefully some of you have seen some of that and provided some ideas, but that was asking how to prioritize for ideas about ways to use this federal infusion. I wish I had those numbers offhand, but it was, I want to say we had 18,000 or so responses at least. So we were really happy with how that went, but that's going to continue with some local county resources that we have. You know, on the cash assistance program that I talked a bit about, we worked with an entity that had been doing that direct cash approach for a while, so had experience with how to kind of design a program and sort of how to actually make it work functionally so that the most individuals could take advantage and actually kind of make their application or request for the cash assistance. We try to bring in community partners for both the rental assistance and the cash assistance program. we had local partners available to help individuals if they needed, some help navigating. But I think it is still work we need to continue doing, particularly if we are going to keep looking at some direct service programs like this, of what's the best way to structure them and roll them out to have the best impact.
Great, thanks, Dom. I think we have two parents on this call too that would love to give you their insights on ways you can support families through programs too. So I'm going to volunteer them up. On that note, before we wrap up, I would like to ask one final question to Melissa and Aisha, and it can be a short but sweet answer. But at Lyft, we believe in talking about families' big dreams that they have for their children. And I would just love to know, what are the big dreams you have for your children?
I just want to see my kids be successful and go to college. My son just told me yesterday he just graduated high school in June and he's about to attend Malcolm X, and I'm just like beyond myself right now because that's something I didn't do. So I just want my kids to be able to do their dreams and push themselves and get the education that I think I was afraid to get, but I hope that they can succeed and get the career they want to do.
Great, thank you.
I agree with Melissa. I would like for my daughter to just be able to conquer all of her dreams. I don't want her to think that she's not good enough, not smart enough to not do anything. I want her to always try to attempt to do whatever it is that her dreams are. I also want her to have opportunities. I don't want her to have to be slighted with her opportunities. I want her to have good chances at opportunities in life, with resources, with help, programs, schools, especially. I want her to be able to go to whatever school she would like to go to, just a good opportunity at life.
Thank you both for sharing those dreams that you have for your kids. And as you, Aisha, you're part of the LIFT family. Melissa, you are officially in the LIFT family. So if there's anything you need for you or your children, please do not hesitate to reach out. We are currently enrolling people in our coaching program if you want to join, shameless plug. But we would love to support you and your family as you continue to chase your dreams. With that, thank you again to everyone for joining our discussion today. I want to especially give a big thank you to Melissa and Aisha for just your vulnerability and sharing your story as a parent here in the city of Chicago. Jonathan, Dom, and Lucy, thank you for sharing your insights into the work that we do and how we can continue to support parents on their path to family economic mobility. We know that the pandemic disproportionately impacted women and people of color. However, these inequities in our city have existed for generations. Lyft is thankful for WTTW for sharing the powerful stories like Melissa and families in Chicago, and for giving us the opportunity to share and lift up promising solutions to help family build economic mobility and break the cycle of poverty. If you'd like to share or rewatch this discussion, the streaming will be posted on WTTW's website. If you are interested in learning more about Lyft and the work that we are doing here in Chicago and across the country in our other cities, please visit our website at whywelift.org. And thank you for joining us today.